Warwick Kids. It's good to be with you today. We have a lesson for you, and we're going to be focusing on a specific person today, and that person's name is Jacob. His story is found in Genesis chapter 32, we're going to focus on verses 3 through 32. So if you want to read that at your own time, I suggest reading that. We don't have the time today, but it will really open up your eyes to the story. So I'm going to talk about what happened during that time. So Jacob is this person in the Bible, and he was at his uncle's house in Haran, and his uncle's name was Laban. And he was at his uncle's house for 20 full years. He was not at his old home, but he fled to his uncle's house to try and get away from his brother Esau, who he had tricked years before into giving him his inheritance. Now, a little backstory for you. Names are very important in the Bible, and some parents would even wait a few days to figure out what should I name this child, because the name was going to tell them about the personality of the child. It had depth and it had meaning. And Jacob's meaning for his name was deceiver. And deceiver is not a positive name. It's not a positive tone. Deceiver means that you will lie, that you're going to trick someone or something. So his name was Deceiver. And in battle, when a person would say their name, it was a sign of surrender. So let's talk about his story a little bit. Jacob was going back to his homeland after years at his uncle's house. Now, over this time, Jacob had acquired great wealth. He had camels and donkeys, and he had servants. So we know that he created a lot of wealth. Now, he was afraid to confront his brother Esau because Esau had been tricked out of something that was going to help his life. Now, Jacob sent scouts over to Esau to see how he was feeling. And Esau was on his way to meet up with Jacob, and he was bringing 400 men with him. Does that sound like someone who is excited to be happy and have a good relationship? Probably not. Bringing 400 men meant a sign of intruding, or you were going to have a fight, an argument. So Jacob was terrified. He didn't want to die because Esau had planned to kill him. Now, Jacob was so afraid, so he prayed, and he said, God, please deliver me. Deliver me from my brother Esau, who I have hurt years in the past. Now, as Jacob was on his way, he had reached the Jabbok River, and now he was going to send some gifts over to his brother to help soften his heart. And first he sent over all kind of cattle. There was donkeys, sheep, there were camels, there were cows, there were all kind of cattle. And he said, I'm going to send these first to soften his heart, and maybe he'll accept me better. But still, he was very, very nervous. So he went and decided, I'm going to send my wife and my children over the river to my brother, and maybe that will soften his heart even further so he won't be as upset with me. And once they're over, I'm just going to wait, and then I'm going to come and meet him when all of this is cleared. So I'm going to be the last one to be crossing that river to meet my brother. And that wasn't the most brave thing to do. It was a coward's move for him to be the last one over the river to meet his brother, because he was not taking responsibility for his actions, and he wasn't being the first thing to talk to his brother. So he was being a coward. Now, let's talk about that night when Jacob stayed from across the river. Jacob was alone. He had no one there with him in his camp. Now, a man appeared, and this man and Jacob, they started to wrestle. And they wrestled all the way until morning time, until daybreak. And Jacob was not going to quit. He was not letting go of this wrestling match. And the man, he said, "You need to quit. Please stop. Let me go." And Jacob said, "No, I'm not going to let go until you bless me." Because after this many hours of wrestling, Jacob realized who he was wrestling with. And he said, "I'm not going to let go until you bless me." So the man asked Jacob, "What's your name?" And remember what I said in the beginning? Telling your name was a sign of surrender in battle. Well, he said his name was Jacob, deceiver. Well, the man said, "Your name is no longer deceiver. Your name is going to be Israel." Israel means that Israel means that God prevails. God fights for you. And his name was going to change from Jacob over to Israel. He received a blessing. Now, after this event, Jacob's life dramatically changed. His heart dramatically changed. He was no longer that deceiver that we talked about before. He was now knowing that God is going to fight for him. God is going to fight his battles. So instead of allowing his camels and his gifts and his family to go and meet Esau first, Jacob said, "No, I'm going to meet Esau first, and I'm going to talk to him." Now, when Jacob was in battle, in wrestling with this man, Jacob, his hip came out of socket. The man touched his hip, and it came out of its socket. Now, he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. So Jacob, he limped over to Esau. He bowed down on his knees, and he was apologizing for the trickery that he made his brother fall into. And he bowed, and he was saying, "Please forgive me." So what do you think? Did Esau come with open arms, or did he come with his 400 men? Esau actually came with open arms and hugged him, and they kissed and they wept and they cried together, and it was a positive event. Now, why do you think it was important that Jacob limped for the rest of his life? What do you think? Well, I believe that it's important that Jacob limped for the rest of his life because it was a constant reminder of the encounter he had with God, the encounter he had with wrestling with God. And I think that limp made him realize each and every day that he needed to have God fight his battles and put God first. So I hope you enjoyed our lesson today, and we're going to learn more about Jacob and his story later.